Hi everyone, welcome to episode 4 of the Illusion Breakdown series. My name is JC Sum. Today we'll be talking about producing a theatrical illusion act. Now, what are we talking about when we talk about a theatrical illusion act? When we talk about a theatrical illusion act, we're talking about maybe an act with a narrative or a storyline, rather than just a collection of different illusions, performed together. Now, if you watch your favorite illusionist, some illusionists would just perform illusions one after the other within the show, not much context or a connection between different illusions. In fact, a lot of my illusions in my own show are just like that. Each illusion is almost modular. I have performed an act before, not really so much a theatrical illusion act. There's kind of a narrative and a flow between illusions from one to the other, because they all move seamlessly from one act to the other, but there's no real storyline or a narrative. But today we're going to talk about a theatrical illusion act, and that is how to put in a narrative or a storyline between different effects, different illusions, so that you get one great act. Remember, we are live, and so if you'd like to ask any questions, please enter your questions in the chat box and we will try to answer it within this webinar. And today's episode is pretty special because I'm not doing it alone. For the very first time, I'm going to have a guest. We're going to try this out because this is my first time having a guest on the live chat. So all fingers crossed. Hope it works. But we have a guest from Germany. He's Ingo Brehm. He's one half of ZauberTriXXer, which is a magic duo with Albin Zicknicker. And together they perform an illusion show, and they've also developed an illusion act which they call Magic Eagles. And today we're going to talk to Ingo about it. We're going to explore different aspects of producing a theatrical illusion act, talk about his experiences and what we can all learn from him. So let's say hi to Ingo.
Hello, JC.
Hi there, Ingo.
Hello, everybody out there. It's great to be here, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much. He's which part of Germany? Near Cologne?
Yes, I live near Cologne, between Cologne and Bonn, which is directly at the River Rhine.
And I am on a ship in the middle of the South China Sea. So this is amazing. Well, it's great to have you here, Ingo. Now, everyone, I hope you've watched the video we have posted on the show page. This is their full act. If you don't have a chance, if you haven't watched it, watch it later. We're going to have that full performance on. But right now, we're going to chat about the act because it's called Magic Eagles. It's quite a unique act in terms of the storyline. So we'll ask Ingo, why did you create the act, or why did you even think about creating a theatrical illusion act?
We created the act because we wanted to work with the girls. No. We created the act mainly because we wanted to create a unique, original act which we wanted to bring to a competition. And Albin and I went to different conventions and competitions since, I think, 2001. Also, that we would like to compete also for different reasons. And in 2012, I attended FISM in Blackpool, and I saw Marcel Caliswat, the former Prince of Illusions. Now he calls himself Magus Utopia, with his really great illusion act, story-based illusion act, Nightmares. And I thought, this is really great. This is a perfect act because I really love stage illusions and I love story-based acts. So I thought it would be a great idea to do something similar, to do an illusion act with the story. And the inspiration came only a few months later when I sat in my living room and watching TV. And while zapping through the different TV stations, I stopped on a movie which is called Bring It On. It's a movie about cheerleaders. I stopped there and suddenly had the inspiration that it would be great to do a story-based illusion act with cheerleaders, with stunts, acrobatics, dance, and combine this all. So that was the reason why we created the act.
Fantastic. I know a lot of Europeans do like the theatrical illusion act. Besides Marcel, who does the great act with Nightmares, I've watched that live. Sita, who's also a world FISM champion. She also does a theatrical illusion act with a storyline. Well, Ingo, maybe you can tell us how did you actually create the act? Did the story come first, or did you choose the effects first, or was it a combination?
It was a combination. The very first idea was in fact, the very first idea that came to mind and that made it actually into the act was a quick change while one of the male cheerleaders does a partner stunt. For those who have seen the video, he throws her up in the air, catches her, and she wears a training suit, a sports suit, and then she's covered by cloth and changes in there into the cheerleader uniform. That was the very first idea we had without having any idea about a story. And then it developed. We researched different illusions. We thought about ideas for a story. The first idea was not to let a football player with a magician compete. We thought that the other, the antagonist would be the coach of the cheerleader squad, and the football player comes in and disturbs the cheerleader training, the practice. Yeah. So that was the very first idea, and our director told us, I think we practiced that and rehearsed that for about 8 or 12 weeks, and then she said, well, I'm not happy with the coach, let's change it to a magician. And so it all developed during the rehearsal, and actually when we started rehearsing, we didn't know how to end the act. So yes, it all worked together in some way. We had the basic idea, we had this conflict idea with the antagonist and protagonist, and we knew that there were a lot of cheerleaders, a lot of girls, and then we started from there. Yes.
Oh, okay, that makes perfect sense. Yep.
Yeah, another thing was because of our budget, we weren't able to buy all of the illusions new, so we had to rely on some stuff that we already had in our warehouse. So we also thought about how to include illusions that we already have to make it a little bit more reasonable from a budget point of view. That was also something that we had to consider while creating the story.
Yeah, well, very practical issue. I mean, I'm no stranger to that when it comes to budgets and just, working within your limitations and what you have. And it's often necessary, right? Because especially, I mean, the amount of cost you have to create an act like that, as anyone can imagine, and anyone who has tried to put together even just a single illusion act, it can be quite costly. What more an act with multiple performers and multiple illusions? So a few things I like to draw from what Ingo just said. I think one of the most important things if you're looking to create a theatrical illusion act is the characters. The characters and context they are put in. Who's the protagonist? Is there an antagonist? What happens? What creates conflict? Or what creates a situation as to why the magic must happen? And then most people I've actually studied or talked to, when they come up with a theatrical illusion act or even an act, it is a combination of how the act comes together. More often than not, just like Ingo, they have a basic idea, a basic premise of how they like to see the act go. And often, you also have effects that you like to perform and see if you can marry them together. And it's kind of a evolving process. And I know with Ingo and Albin, it was an evolution of how the act came about. Maybe we can talk about some specific parts of the act. I think we have time for maybe 3 parts. Now, if you haven't watched the act yet, this might be foreign to you, but you can listen to this first and watch it later if you haven't watched the act. But Ingo, maybe we'll talk about the characters, because that's very central to any theatrical act. So in your case, you have the magician and the footballer, but you also have kind of a storyline that you set up with the voiceover for the child or the boy who seems to be in conflict of whether he wants to be a magician or footballer. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, let's start with the little boy. That bit came in only a few weeks before FISM last year. And it solved the problem we had about 3 years. We always ask ourselves the question, why is there a football player and why are there cheerleaders on stage? It's quite easy to answer why there is a magician on stage, but how the hell comes a football player on stage. And why does he do that? Yeah, so we never solved this problem until we got this idea from a friend of us, Nikolai Friedrich, who is a magician and mentalist here from Germany. And he said, why don't you make it the dream of a little boy? The dream of a little boy who wants to be both a magician and a great football star. And we like the idea because we all know the magicians, and normally magicians are not the cool sport players, you know. They all know why we do magic, and we're not successful in sports. So we especially liked also the sentence of the father who said, "You can't be both." And so the little boy was the last piece that wrapped it up, that gave a reason for all this stuff happening on stage. The other question was about the characters, how we created them and what we thought about them. First of all, it's important to know that both characters have elements from our own personalities in them. Albin, who is the magician, is a very straightforward guy. He's very reliable. He's especially I know the German word.
Trustworthy, dependable, trustworthy.
Yeah, dependable, trustable. Yeah, and all this. And he's a very likable guy. People really like him when he enters the room. Everybody likes Albin. And in some way, we created this magician also because it was for a competition act, that all the magicians could identify with him. Because we all know this when we're doing our little manipulations and nobody likes to watch it. And we didn't want to make him too great, too much over the top, like many illusionists are in their acts, because we wanted to keep the possibility that people in the audience think, oh, that could be me in some way. Yeah. And the football player is the exact opposite. I'm also
not likable, not dependable. Yep.
Yes, actually. Yeah, but it's really true. When we both meet new people, for people it's easier to connect with Albin than with me, because I'm a little bit more maybe rough to people. I often say what I think, and I also often say to people what I think when I don't have them, and that might lead to some conflicts from time to time.
And you look a bit more fierce, I think, than Albin.
Yes. And so I'm also more playful. I'm a little bit more chaotic and unorganized than Albin is. So some of our character traits are in these characters we play on stage. And I look better than him also. I know he's listening now and he can't do anything against it, so I had to say that. No, but the conflict was also always to find a way where they could fight with each other, but we also wanted to find a way where they could connect again with each other. Yeah, so we had to establish the conflict in the beginning, and we had to find something what they would fight for. And the solution was the magic wand, which seems to be a very easy solution, but it actually took us about a year to find this, that there's a magic wand we have to fight for, and I want to have the magic wand because who has the magic wand has the power. If you watch carefully the video of the act, everything happens only when somebody has the magic wand. At one point, one of the girls has the magic wand, so she's the one who is in charge. And in the end, it's a logical ending that the girl breaks the wand in two pieces and hands everybody a piece so that we both win. And then we realize that we can work together. So that was the development of character, stories, and conflict there.
I think what I picked up, I mean, exactly what Ingo said. Well, the first thing is the use of the boy, to provide a narration. And a lot of times, if we're creating a theatrical illusion act to set a context, sometimes that's all you need. Of course, you need some production value, maybe some set design, costumes to kind of communicate to the audience what the context of the performance is. But just a few lines as simple as a voiceover can really set the context of the reason and motivation and justification of a theatrical illusion act. And if we think about characters, we often hear the saying that our stage performers and personas are extensions of ourselves. This is the case of Ingo and Albin in their act. In the case for myself as well, my stage persona is an extension of my act. But of course, this is not a hard and fast rule, because there are also many performers who also create a vastly different character, which may be completely different from what they are. But know that there are different ways to create your character. It could be an extension from yourself, which is, I think, the most common, or to go the other extreme and to create a character which is unusual, different, or stands out, maybe really different from you because you are an actor playing the part of a magician after all. And finally, the device, I really liked, the wand being the symbol of the magic and being able to pass it from person to person to promote the storyline so that stuff can happen. There's kind of, in the context of their act, there's always a one-upmanship. Whoever's the one, tries to do more and more amazing things. And of course, there's a resolution at the end. Yes. Fantastic. Let's talk about, yes, Ingo?
Yeah, maybe I can't stress this enough, this question, why you enter a stage, why you come on stage and do something. This is also not only important for theatrical acts. I think it's important for every act. It was Bob Fitch who pointed this out for the first time to me. It doesn't matter if you want to tell a story or if you just want to do a single effect like cutting a rope in half or sawing a woman in half, or whatever you want to do. You should always ask you, why do I do it? And if the only answer is just because I can, this is mostly the worst answer you can give.
That's true, but a lot of times in a lot of illusions or acts that we do, right, we do it because we can, right? Yeah. So why do you perform a sub-trunk? Because you can. But I mean, I can appreciate that, especially for a theatrical illusion show, which has a narrative or storyline. The motivation is very important. The context is very important.
Yeah.
Ted, Ingo, let's talk about maybe specific. We've talked about character. We talk about kind of moving the plot together with the conflict of characters. Let's talk about some of the show, the 12-Go cabinet, which is it's really the Jarrett cabinet by using kind of mind simplified version of the 12-Go cabinet. And that's where we, you produce, well, in your case, you produce 11 cheerleaders from an empty cabinet. And I should mention the Jarrett cabinet is interesting because it's not like a typical illusion where you show the box completely empty, you close it up again, and then you produce the people. In this case, it's because of the impossible amount of people coming from this small cabinet that really makes it interesting, puzzling, and at the end, of course, you can open it to show that's a completely empty cabinet. But let's talk about some challenges you had, and then we'll talk about how you worked about improving the deceptiveness, and maybe we can also talk about tips for anyone performing any kind of a large production from a cabinet or from a platform or from a curtained canopy.
Yeah. Besides structural problems, problems with the structure of the act, which we don't want to cover here because it would take us too long. The main problem we had with the cabinet was actually the deceptiveness and the problem that people thought we would load the girls from behind, from through the backdrop into the box and then coming out in the front. And the reason for that was...
Sorry, I should just highlight. So the deceptiveness is not so much whether the box was too big or the design wasn't deceptive. It's more the fact that a possible method, which is very logical for an audience, is that the girls or the guys could just be coming from, they could be walking through a tunnel or, just walking through the backdrop into the back of the cabinet.
Yes, and we tried a lot to handle this problem. One of the main reasons why people thought this was that most stages are not big enough. If you can put this cabinet very far away from the backdrop, it works very well because nobody thinks that you could load from behind when it's far away from the backdrop. But it must be at least 5, better 6 meters from the backdrop to really make sure that nobody thinks that somebody could come from behind. And that's a problem because most stages are not big enough to do that. Actually, only in Rimini and FISM we had the opportunity to put the box way in the middle of the stage because the stage was so big. And so we tried different things. We tried to put the box to the very front, very much down, downstage. We tried to put
towards the audience.
Let the girls come out and place them more behind of the box than in front, as we do it now. And then another problem occurred because the box appeared much bigger when the girls go back. So we had a visual problem. The box wasn't deceptive anymore. Yeah, nobody thought then that it wouldn't be possible to place them all in there. So that wasn't the solution. We put it back. We thought about solutions to turn it, which is not possible for those who know the method. We also, what we did was we took bigger casters to put it higher up. So now I think the actual casters are about 25 or even 30 centimeters at the moment there, or even 40, I don't know. Very big casters we have now under the base of the cabinet to make it possible for the audience to watch under the cabinet and be sure that nobody's running there. We bought lights to highlight the backdrop because you have good lighting there, and you can make the backdrop very light and not very dark. It also helps to make the stage very deep and to cancel this out. But this all didn't work in the end. And when you see, when you search on YouTube for the Jared cabinet, there are a few out there from Doug Henning and from Scott Alexander, I think.
Yeah, Scott Alexander, that's right.
Yeah, then Scott Alexander does it outside. Yeah, he does it not in a hall, not on a stage. He does it outside. So it works very well there because there is no possibility to come from somewhere else. Yeah, and yeah, we really didn't solve that problem to the end, especially to magicians. And that was a problem because it was a competition act. For lay people, it was not such a big problem, as we learned. We asked a lot of lay people what they think about the cabinet, and they all said it's impossible. Where do they come from? But magicians and that was the problem. I already said that because of the competition act. I always thought, yeah, well, you load them in from behind. Actually, one judge once said to me, I really don't know how you do it, but it doesn't fool me. I don't understand this.
But I think we all can understand that.
Yeah, we changed also some things in the back. I don't know if you can talk here open about methods. But
not too much about the method, but we can, yeah.
Yeah, we changed the way. There's some secret in the back to make it easier to load the cabinet and to fill it up. And we changed a little bit there to make it quicker when you have to do a cleanup in the end. When the two male cheerleaders here, they have to do a cleanup, and we changed some things there to make it more deceptive. Also, yeah, to make it really solid, so to show that nobody can come from behind. Yeah, these were all things we did, and we worked a little bit with the colors. And I really think the actual design with the orange color and the blue stripes on the side works very well to make the cabinet quite small and make it impossible that 11 people are actually in there.
I think some of my thoughts for the 12 Go cabinet, because I performed it before as well, and I share it in Behind Illusions 2. It does depend what you're performing on. When you're performing on a stage, which is small, not deep, and it has a cloth backdrop, it's very logical for an audience to think that they come through. If you're performing on a bigger stage, especially against a hard backdrop or LED video wall, of course, it's much more deceptive. And I've seen footage of, Ingo's FISM performance. And in that case, the cabinet is really in the middle of the stage, and the backdrop is an LED wall. So everything is very brightly lit, and there's no suspicion, absolutely, that the cabinet is isolated from the backdrop, and there's no way people can be coming from backdrop. But if you're to perform the 12 girl cabinet or any kind of prop, let's say a modern cabinet or any kind of that sort of illusion where you're producing impossible amount of people, objects, you want to try to have it as downstage as possible. If that's not possible, some suggestions I would have, yes, light. I would actually have lights on tripods shining from the backdrop to the back of the prop. So you're actually backlighting the prop. I think that helps a bit because people might think, well, if there are people coming through, I might see shadows. Another thing you can do is maybe put some kind of physical barrier, like those construction, just simple, like a wood strip on a V that can be physically put in place just as a physical barrier. Or what I've done for some productions, not specifically for the 12 cabinet, but a large production, I had a video camera which was apparently on a live feed. It was on a live feed actually, and it would go around and shoot behind the cabinet, and the back of the cabinet was actually shown on the screens as we presented it in front. So these are just some solutions and some things to think about if you are doing any kind of production from a large cabinet.
Yeah. What just came to mind is not more from the deceptiveness, but from the presentation of the cabinet. What was also challenging for us was to find the right rhythm to produce the girls, because it has to build in some way. When you just take out first girl, second girl, third girl, fourth girl, it doesn't really work because it gets boring to the audience. So we found now a rhythm. When you watch the video again, you will see that the first girl comes out. And this is not really an effect because, okay, there's a girl in there. The second girl comes out. This is also not the biggest effect. And then the third girl, we take a quick look in there, and then the fourth and the fifth come out. So people begin to realize, okay, there are more and more and more. So we start slowly, and then we raise the speed with the girls coming out. Then we have a small break in there when the girl with the towel around, the nude girl, comes out. This is the moment where Albin, the magician, takes the wand again, and he does a mistake. He's not able to produce a real cheerleader, but he produces a nude girl. We always called her the shower girl because she has a shower hat on her head. And this produces a nice laugh in the middle of the act, which is also very good for people to relax for a moment. And then after that, immediately the next girls come out and out and out. And then we have this sign on the point of view left side where we change it from women to men. And then the girl takes the band, and then there are two male cheerleaders in there who we asked to make themselves very big to fill the whole cabinet, to make it even more impossible that all the girls were in there. So the rhythm is very important when you produce so much stuff out of a box. Also here, you can learn from it not only for girls, when you have a box where you produce other stuff out, if it's silks or bottles or balls, whatever you want to produce out of your box, you have to find a rhythm to make it interesting, and you have to find something to break the rhythm to keep the attention up. Yeah.
Great point. I mean, any multiple production needs good rhythm, and that's what I liked about your 12 go, 11 go cabinet, was the rhythm, was the variety, because it's very easy to get monotonous. I mean, on one hand, the strength of continuous production, multiple production, is the fact that keep on producing and producing items or people from a production box. But at the same time, it can get very monotonous and almost get boring if it's just repeated over and over again, especially for today's audience. So yes, very important to think about rhythm and how to make it entertaining for the audience. And as Ingo said, not just producing people from a cabinet, but if you have a production box like a square circle, a mirror box, if you want to make a big deal out of it, you have to make it entertaining, and you have to build towards a grand finale. So let's talk about one more illusion, Ingo. In the, I guess, kind of the middle of the act, you have a transformation illusion, which I guess we call the cloth wrap illusion. I've also seen it called the 5-panel wrap illusion. But basically, there's a big cloth which opens up. The person stands inside it or in front of it, wrapped around, turned around, opened up, and the person is transformed to another person. I personally worked with this illusion before, and I know it's much more difficult than it looks. It seems simple. You've talked to me about some of the challenges you had. Maybe you can discuss that and share with our listeners and our viewers what they can look out for if they intend to perform this particular illusion.
Yeah. From a technical point of view, this was the most challenging illusion for us. It was very difficult to make it right, to bring it on stage. It all started with the description in Greater Magic. In Greater Magic, this effect is called transmogrification. I don't know who had the idea for this. Transmogrification, and the description in Greater Magic is wrong. It doesn't work when you do it like this. It took us time to find this out, and then we worked it back from different videos, especially from a duck henning video, which is on YouTube, and found out how to do it right. And there are different aspects. In the first version, we used the wrong cloth. We used a very thin silk cloth, and it doesn't work with that. You have to use something very thick, very thick, a cotton cloth, something which, which helps.
Has some body or some bulk to it.
Yeah, some bulk to cover the two people in there, because at one moment there are two people standing back to back, and it has to cover this. And if you have a very thin cloth, you see two bodies in there, and you know what's going on. That's the very first thing. If you find a cloth with a pattern on it, which we didn't find a suitable cloth with the pattern, but that would be also good, because it hides even more the shape under the cloth. Something more we found out was to put a black rim on the top and on the bottom. The top is not so important. That we just did for design reasons, but the bottom is very important, because most stages are black, and if you use a black part on the bottom of the cloth, this blends into the black floor of the stage. And so if the cloth goes up a little bit, it's and you wear black shoes also, the audience is not able to see so easy that your shoes, especially not too many shoes. It's no problem if they see just 2 shoes, 2 feet, yeah, but if they see 3 or 4 feet, they also know what's going on in there. Then we put lead, a chain of lead in the hem, in the bottom hem, also in this black bottom hem, to keep the cloth always down. It's very important to rehearse it very thoroughly, to learn how to move, in which rhythm you have to move. So many things that come to mind. It's also important to keep the 2 middle posts. There are 4 posts sewn into the cloth, 2 outer posts and 2 middle posts. And between the 2 middle posts, the person stands. And it has to be be kept upright. Yeah, it shouldn't move, the 2 posts in the middle, while the girls are wrapping it up. And
it's really the people inside who are holding it straight, correct? Yeah. Because they're standing in front and the hands down and they're holding the posts.
Correct. And there's the problem. If the person in front, who is seen by the audience, holds the post, and the person in the back, who also has to help giving some strength to the post, also holds them, and the girls come around and wrap it up, the person suddenly has 3 hands. You can see that under the cloth. So you have to check how you...
From the side of the cloth, when they start to wrap it.
Yes, correct. And so it's also too early to show the people that there are two people in there actually. And so many different details you have to check. What was also a breakthrough for us to make the illusion more deceptive is also the rhythm. We first did it like that. We wrapped it up and wrapped it off again, and suddenly somebody else stood in front of the cloth. We showed this to Gaston. Gaston is a German magician. Who doesn't know him? He has a great act. He won FISM in Stockholm 2006 with it, and he also helps other magicians as a director. And he watched it several times, and he said, something is wrong, something is wrong. I always think there are two people, and you just turn it around, and then the other side, you start with side one, and you end with side two. And it should look like you start with side one, and you end with side one. And he watched it again and again, and we really thought about an hour or two about it. And then suddenly we had the idea, or he had the idea actually, and it's very easy. After wrapping it up, you just have to stop. You have to stop for a moment, then do a magic gesture, in our case, the magic gesture with the wand, and then unwrap it again. And then this little moment gives a kind of time misdirection to forget which side is the front and which is the back. And then the illusion works. Just a little stop in the middle. Wrapping it up, stop for 2 seconds, do a magic gesture, unwrap it, and it works. It's better than wrapping it up and unwrapping it in one go.
And it also actually makes it easier because you're breaking up the motion, because so many people have to work together to make this easier. So when you have a shorter series of actions, it actually works out better.
Yeah.
One other thing I think you also did to make it more deceptive, standing out to show the football.
Yeah, correct. I think in the special case of the performance we put online in France, there's a little problem in there because we use 2 footballs. Who thought that before? And in this special case, we had a new stagehand there, and we didn't train enough with him, and he forgot to check the second football. So the second football comes into play when we do the crystal metamorphosis, and the girl who has to throw it in didn't find it because the stagehand forgot to put it there, which was our fault because we didn't train it enough with him. And so in this special case on the video, you can see this exactly how it works. Normally it works like that. The football player takes the football and walks into the cloth. The girls wrap him up, and then you can see a hand coming out with the football up there. And audience thinks, okay, this is the football player because he went in there with the football. They unwrap it, and then the magician stands there with the football in his hand. And then this is also not on the video because another problem was that my double was ill on this day, so we couldn't use him. And then normally Albin takes the ball, the magician, and throws it into the audience, and in the audience the football player stands and catches the football. So I really like also this bit at the end of the cloth wrap, because it's a great way for an appearance in the audience and leading the attention of the audience from the stage into the audience to the football player and throwing the football there. So this all comes together.
Yeah, and that's almost like a reappearance in the audience at the same time.
Yes, but this is not on the video we put online because we use a double there. You can think you might know that, and I think he was ill or he wasn't there at set. That was the only performance where we didn't do it with a double. So I'm sorry for that.
Okay, I'm going to ask just a quick question in terms of if someone wants to perform this particular cloth wrap illusion. Now, I've done it before. I have it. I used a thicker cloth, and my cloth has a sparkle. It's not sequin, but some kind of sparkle and design to it, so it does help hide the bulges. I had it double lined as well, so it's pretty thick. Now, I used aluminum poles inside. metal poles, what did you use for the inside for the 4 poles?
These are also aluminum. The problem is they bend a little bit after you use them very often. So sometimes you have to take them and
straighten them out.
Straighten them back, yeah. But we also use aluminum because the cloth in itself is very heavy, and it's also already difficult enough for the girls to handle the cloth. And if we would use steel posts, for example, it would make it even more difficult.
Too difficult to use. So I use aluminum as well, but I think my aluminum is at least 2 mm thick. So it's not thick enough for it to bend. But what I did find was that over time, because they're always placed on the floor and turn around, the bottom of my cloth would tear and rip. The aluminum, the edges or the ends of the aluminum poles rub against the bottom of the cloth, and now it's all duct taped.
Yeah.
Did you have that problem?
Yes, and we duct tape it also, but we've sewn it close again and again, and we duct taped it, and we had the same problem. But actually, we didn't have the problem in the bottom. We had it in the top. So the aluminum posts came out in
pushing it out.
Yeah, pushing it out. There we had the problem, not in the bottom.
Okay, if I was thinking of rebuilding this, and if I was actually thinking of just making it out of canvas, because canvas is very strong. It's not very reflective, so you don't see bulges as much. I haven't made it yet, but I was thinking of doing that. The only problem possibly is weight, so I'm not sure about that yet, but I'll give it a shot. The other thing I would do, because we're talking about putting the hands down to the sides to hold the poles, I would actually do small handles where they can actually just hold the handle so that they don't really have to grab the pole, because when you use canvas or any thick material, it's harder for them to grip the pole when it's kind of sewn between 2 cloths. So if you ever decide to do that, you can use these ideas. Anything you'd like to add, Ingo?
Yeah, we have handles there, and we tried it with it, but it was not possible because of the football.
Yeah, okay, so when you perform this, don't use a football, okay? Anyone performing this, forget about the football.
Without a football, a handle is a good idea, but with a football, it's not a good idea.
Okay. Okay, good point. We are running to about 45 minutes, so we're going to end up with one last thing which we did, or 2 more pieces, or 2 more things we're going to discuss. So let's talk about the 4th point. I know when you created this act, this wasn't just yourself and Albin come up with all the ideas. Just by hearing you talk, you consulted, so you seek feedback and advice from different magicians, consultants, directors. Maybe you can tell us who you talked to and how did this consultation approach come up? Because I think many magicians who are coming out with new acts, whether it's illusion act or just a stage act, they're probably thinking, who do I approach and how do I approach them?
Yes. So the first person who helped us was our director, Susanne Seewald. She lives here in Cologne, and she's very experienced with theater and theatrical magic acts. She's also the director of Gaston, I mentioned earlier. And yes, she was hired by us. We paid her for that. So that is one possibility, just to hire somebody.
Okay.
Somebody else who helped us a lot was Bob Fitch. Bob Fitch, many people know him, is also a director, magician from New Jersey. And we attended one of his workshops. I think it was 2004, 2005. And since then, we had a close friendship to Bob, visited him in the United States, and we kept in contact via email, Skype, and all this stuff. And so we always did send him videos, and he helped us, gave us critique ideas from his point of view as the theater guy. So this was a friend, actually. So there were more friends we have in magic, like also you, who helped us a lot with ideas. And this is the second thing. So hiring people, finding a lot of friends, which is, in my opinion, one of the greatest gift in magic, that you learn, that you meet so many interesting people around the world. There was also, for example, with the cross rep, I just emailed Jim Steinmeier and told him we're working on an act. We want to include this illusion. I've seen that Doug Henning does that. maybe you have some ideas because you worked with Doug. And yeah, Jim answered, I think after a day or something, very quickly. I didn't expect that, and gave us some really interesting ideas, especially to use another clause. So this was just luck. Another interesting story.
Sorry, did you have a video at that time when you emailed Jim? Did you have an
Yes.
did you have a video of you performing it already?
We recorded a video just of this effect to make it easier for him. I think when you ask somebody for help, it's always important that you don't waste his time too much. So if somebody wants to see more, you can give it to him later. But if you have only a question about one effect, as in our case, I would never send to him a whole 10-minute act and say, look at that 10-minute act. I have just one question about minute 350 or something like that. So we did send him, I think we did send him a short video where we rehearsed the effect. Yes.
I think also a good point to mention, besides sending him too much, it's important to send whoever you're asking help a video, because a lot of magicians, I mean, I do get a lot of emails, I get a lot of messages, and a lot of times I'm not sure if they're serious, because they just ask abstract questions. It's hard for me to give any help, because I'm not sure if they're just asking because they want to know a secret, or if they're just exploring an idea, or I can't really tell the intention. So my advice would be, if you are asking anyone for help, it's good if you show whether it's photographs or a video is the best, or if you're working on illusion design, at least a sketch of a design, something that shows you have actually put in some thought already, and you need help to take it to the next level, or maybe to solve a problem. It's harder to just go up to someone and says, hey, I think this would look good in my act. How can you, what do you think? It's hard for someone to help that way.
Yeah, and something else I learned now from the other point of view, when people ask me for help, I personally appreciate it if people say thank you after you help them. And that this seems to be not normal in today's world for some reason. I don't know why, but after you help them, just to say shortly thank you for your help might help to get help again, but everybody has to decide for himself.
Mm-hmm.
To do it. Yes, another interesting story who helped us was a very famous magician. It was Teller from Penn and Teller, and that was a very great story, because a friend of mine, Rainer, and we have been to Vegas, and Danny Archer helped us to get into the Penn and Teller show. And for some reason, Danny Archer arranged a meeting with Teller after the show. So we went backstage and met Teller and talked to him a little bit. And he asked, what do you guys do? And I just said, well, I'm working on a competition act where a magician meets a footballer, and they struggle with each other and produce a lot of cheerleader girls. And he said, I like that. I want to see that. And I said, well, you can. I have it on the internet. Let's watch it. So we had the situation with Teller in his dressing room, sitting on the floor, doing some stretching exercises after the show, watching from the floor to his iMac our video, and criticizing the act and giving us tips for about 1.5 hours. I will never forget that. And he gave us so many great tips and ideas, which helped us so much. And yes, I'm still a big fan of him, and I'm still thankful about that. Now, I wouldn't recommend every magician to try to approach Teller now and get backstage. We really were lucky about that. But the essence is, if you don't try and approach people, you will never get help from them. And I learned that magicians are very helpful, and if you have a way to approach them and be polite, you will get help, you will get answers, and at least you will get answers where you can find the help. Yeah, you might have to do a little bit of research by yourself. You shouldn't be annoyed when somebody says to you, you can find this in table number 4, which is an answer I very often give when somebody asks me, because you find the most of the things in table. And then you shouldn't be annoyed, but you should be thankful that you got the hint to the right book. Yeah, you can see all the books behind me. If you have to look through them, it would be much more difficult, and you save a lot of time if you know where to find it. So yeah, just approach them, be polite, introduce yourself, maybe bring some proof that you're serious, like pictures, videos, and I'm very sure you will get help.
Great points. Okay, so two things I'd like to, I guess, to wrap up that particular topic. Yes, I do agree. Most people help. And I think what's great about you had help from magicians from different countries,
Yes.
which I do too. When I ask for perspectives, I like to hear perspectives from different countries, not just from my region or my country, because we may think alike. Because different countries have different influences. Asians, the Americans, the Europeans all have different influences in terms of how they want to stage and act, even from methods. And more often than not, if you're asking help, you're probably talking from the staging, choreography, or presentational point, because methods are generally more universal. But I think that's great, asking from people from all over the world. So I'm gonna end that section, because it comes. I get feedback all the time when I ask, how do you know when to, I won't say ignore the feedback, but disregard? Because you get 10 pieces of feedback, you can get 10 different opinions, right, when you show something. So how do you decide what to keep, what not to keep?
In the first place, we write everything down what we get, and then we structured it. We had different aspects like cloth wrap, 11-girl cabinet, conflict, acting points. And we took all the feedback we got and wrote it down and structured it into different topics. And mostly it was like that. If several people reported back to us that this problem might be a bigger one. So no, let me say that again. If several people reported the same thing back to us, we realized that might be a bigger problem. Yeah. So that was the first way we handled all the feedback. The second is that you have to judge for yourself if you want to include a feedback or not. It's also very often a matter of taste. Even if you get feedback from very good people and very well experienced people, we work, for example, also with Eberhard Riese, who is the director of many competition acts here in Germany, and he's really great, has great ideas. But we also put some ideas from him down and didn't take them because we didn't like them, and that's okay. Yeah, everybody who gives feedback knows that you can't include everything. So some judgment, some personal judgment is very important. And the last thing is, at some point, you have to limit your feedback. You should listen to everybody, but you shouldn't take it too serious, especially when there are people out there who give you feedback without being asked. That's also something I personally don't understand. I never give feedback if I'm not asked for it, except if these are close friends of mine. But I would never dare to call or to approach a magician whom I've seen his act and then tell him, I didn't like that, I would do that in another way, and I didn't like that. And this happened a lot of times to us. And there you just have to be polite, smile, and yeah. And sometimes tell them that you don't want to hear that. And that's the moment why people don't like me and like Aldi more, because this was always my task to do that.
Okay, well, to end this webinar and to segue from what you just said, then, what is advice you have for our listeners and viewers for creating a theatrical illusion act? Any parting words?
The very most important thing is get started. Get started with just one illusion and an idea. We are creating a new act now because we put the old act down, and we are at the moment we're creating and designing the new illusion. And then we will start just with this one illusion and a basic idea and try to work from there. I think most people got stuck in the moment of developing and writing all the stuff down. It is important to plan what you do, but at some point you have to get started.
Just
and
do it.
especially for, yeah, just do it. And for a theatrical act, always ask yourself, why am I doing this now? And does it help the story, the plot? And don't try to tell Shakespeare in 10 minutes. Keep the plot simple. Yeah, it's very important to keep the plot simple and to learn a lot about theater and basic plots, and you will see that most plots are it's very easy to narrate the most plots. There's a book, it's called 20 Master Plots by Ronald B. Tobias. I think I have it here, just a moment. Yes, over there.
20 Master Plots.
20 Master Plots. It's in English.
And how to build them, yep.
Yes, and Mr. Tobias found out that there are 20 plots, and with those 20 plots, you cover most of the stories you find in the world literature. Like here, it's the escape or the quest, and you have the revenge or the rivalry. Yeah, so you have 20 plots that you find in the literature, and all the stories can be broken down to these 20 plots. And if you find your plot, you can read there and find what's important for your specific plot, and you will see that there are only a few things that are important. And so you keep away from making the story too complex, to put too much in there, because most magic acts are about 10 minutes, I think, that way, or maybe 15, but not more. And it's not possible to make it too difficult. The more you add, the more difficult it gets. And it might be that you understand your plot, but the audience doesn't. So that's important to keep it simple.
Great advice and a great recommendation for that book. Well, Ingo, can you tell our listeners and viewers where they can stay in contact with you, your social media platforms?
Yes, you can approach us on Facebook, ZauberTriXXer, which is ZauberTriXXer is our name. You can approach us on our website, ZauberTriXXer.de or ZweitZauberer.de. I think the link is in the show notes. Drop us a mail, and we're happy to help you if you have any questions. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Ingo. I think it's been a really informative and insightful webinar. So if you're watching, do check out the show notes. I've got a related post on how to create a stage act, which covers some of the points, not an illusion act, but again, similar points. And if you are thinking about developing an act, whether it's an illusion act, a theatrical illusion act, a stage act, this information might be helpful for you. There are also some links to some of my products, some of my illusions, which actually are featured in Ingo's act as well. So I think this has been great. Thank you so much, Ingo. We had a great time. And to everyone out there, my name is JC Sum. I hope to see you on stage.
Bye-bye.